I'm Elena. I'm 32 years old, and the day my mother forgot to hang up the phone was the day my entire life snapped in half. I heard her voice, casual and light, whispering to someone in what she thought was privacy. She's a burden. Always has been. Those 4 words. Those 4 simple words carved themselves into my chest like someone had taken a blade and slowly, deliberately, dragged it across my heart. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. I just sat there, frozen, holding my phone against my ear like it was the only thing keeping me tethered to reality, while everything I thought I knew about my family crumbled into dust. Before I continue, please like this video, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. Your support genuinely keeps this channel alive. I need you to understand that sharing these stories, telling these truths, it's the only way people like me survive. So please stay with me. And let me know you're here. I need to take you back. Way back. Because this didn't start with that phone call. This started when I was 7 years old, and my mother looked at me across the dinner table and said, "You need to be more considerate. Your father works very hard." I remember thinking even then that something about that sentence felt wrong. I was 7. What was I supposed to be doing? I was just a kid. But that became the pattern. Everything I did was either not enough or too much. I was too loud. I was too quiet. I was too needy. I was too independent. There was no version of me that was ever just right. My mother had this way of looking at me, this tight-lipped, disappointed expression that made me feel like I was constantly failing some test I didn't know I was taking. She compared me to my cousins constantly. "Why can't you be more like Sarah? She's so helpful. Look at how polite Michael is. You could learn something from him." It didn't matter that I got good grades or that I tried so hard to make her proud. Nothing I did ever seemed to register as good enough. My father? He was just absent. Physically there, emotionally a ghost. He'd nod along with whatever my mother said, laugh at her little digs, and retreat into his newspaper or his television shows. He never defended me. Not once. But then there was Great Aunt Miriam. She lived 20 minutes away in this beautiful, quiet house with a garden that smelled like lavender and rosemary. Her home felt like stepping into a different world. Warm, calm, structured in a way that made sense. When I was at Aunt Miriam's house, I could breathe. She taught me things my parents never bothered with. How to budget my allowance. How to set boundaries without feeling guilty. How to value myself as a person, not just as someone's daughter or someone's burden. She'd sit with me at her kitchen table, drinking tea, and she'd say, "Elena, you don't owe anyone your peace. Remember that." When I was 19, Aunt Miriam passed away unexpectedly. A heart attack in her sleep. I was devastated. She was the only person who ever made me feel like I mattered. And then, a week after her funeral, her lawyer called me. She'd left me her house. The entire property. $1.5 million worth of real estate in a beautiful neighborhood, paid off completely, with a small trust to cover taxes and maintenance for the first few years. I couldn't believe it. My mother was furious. Not sad. Not grieving. Furious. "That house should belong to the family," she said, her voice sharp and cold. "Miriam didn't think this through. You're too young to handle that kind of responsibility." But the will was ironclad. The house was mine. And for a while, I thought maybe this was my chance. My chance to finally have something that was just mine. A place where I could build a life on my own terms. I moved in. I painted the walls. I tended the garden. I felt, for the first time in my life, like I had a home that wasn't conditional. And then my parents showed up. "We just need to stay for a little while," my mother said, standing in the doorway with 2 suitcases. "Just until we figure some things out." My father nodded beside her, sheepish but silent. I should have said no. God, I should have said no. But I was still that 7-year-old girl at the dinner table, trying so hard to be considerate. So I let them in. Temporary, I told myself. Just temporary. Temporary became a month. A month became 6 months. 6 months became a year. They never paid rent. They never contributed to groceries or utilities. They criticized everything. The way I decorated. the way I cooked, the way I kept the garden. My mother would sigh loudly whenever I mentioned anything about finances, like I was being petty for even bringing it up. We're family, Elena. Family doesn't keep score. But she kept score. Oh, she kept score. Every favor I'd ever asked for as a teenager, every time they'd paid for something when I was growing up, she'd bring it up in these subtle, poisonous little comments. After everything we've done for you, you're really going to charge us rent? My father would laugh. Actually laugh. You're so lucky, Elena. Not everyone gets handed a house like this. Handed. Like I hadn't been the one Aunt Miriam chose. Like I hadn't been the one who spent time with her, who listened to her, who loved her. They treated my home like it was theirs. They redecorated the living room without asking. They invited friends over and introduced it as our place. And my mother started dropping hints. Little comments about retirement security and making sure the family is taken care of. I knew what she was building toward. She wanted me to sign the house over to them. And then came the phone call. I'd called her to ask about some missing insurance paperwork. She answered from a cafe. I could hear the background noise, the clinking of cups and low murmur of conversations. She sounded irritated, distracted. I'm busy, Elena. Can this wait? I said it was quick. Just needed to know where the documents were. She snapped something about checking the filing cabinet and then I heard her say, hold on, but she didn't hang up. She thought she did. But she didn't. I stayed on the line. I don't know why. Maybe I was going to hang up myself. But then I heard her voice, quieter now, talking to someone else. A friend, I assume. And she said it. Clear as glass. She's a burden. Always has been. I felt my entire body go cold. My hands started shaking. I pressed the phone harder against my ear, like maybe I'd heard wrong, like maybe I could rewind reality and make it different. But her friend laughed, and said, you've been patient long enough. Once she signs the transfer, you'll finally have stability. And my mother, my own mother, said, I know. The house should have never been hers anyway. Miriam didn't know what she was doing. I sat there on my couch, trembling, tears streaming down my face, and I didn't make a sound. I just listened. I listened until they changed the subject. I listened until my mother finally realized the call was still connected and hung up abruptly. And then I sat there in silence, staring at the wall, feeling like the floor had opened up beneath me and I was falling into nothing. But here's the thing. After the shock wore off, after the tears dried, something shifted inside me. I didn't scream. I didn't confront her. I didn't break down. I got cold, clear, strategic. Because I realized something in that moment. I had been expecting them to love me. I had been waiting my entire life for them to see me as something other than an inconvenience. But they never would. And I was done waiting. I called an attorney the next morning. A good one. I explained the situation calmly, methodically. I asked one question. Do I owe them anything? He looked over Aunt Miriam's will, looked over the property deed, looked at me and said, not a single thing. That house is yours. Legally, entirely, completely yours. I nodded, and I started planning. If you're still here, tell me, should I have confronted them or stayed silent? And while you think about it, hit subscribe. Or tell me in the comments why you refused to. I see every message. I need to know I'm not alone in this. I didn't tell them anything. I moved like a shadow through my own house. I started quietly packing my things. A box here, a bag there, nothing noticeable. I opened a new bank account at a different institution. I got a new phone number and didn't give it to them. I hired a moving company that specialized in discreet relocations. And I found a buyer for the house. A private sale. No listing. No open houses. 1.5 million cash offer, closed in 30 days. I packed my parents' belongings carefully. I labeled every box. I rented a storage unit 2 towns over and paid for 6 months up front. I left them a list of everything that was there and the access code. I wasn't cruel. I didn't throw their things away. But I wasn't their daughter anymore either. I was someone who had finally learned what Aunt Miriam tried to teach me. I didn't owe anyone my peace. I signed the closing paperwork on a Tuesday. I moved into a small, furnished condo 2 hours away that same week. It was quiet. It was mine. And it was far enough that they couldn't just show up. I left one thing behind in the house. A single folded note on the kitchen counter. It said, "A burden took care of it." They came home from their cruise 3 days later. They'd been gone for 2 weeks, living it up on a vacation I'd helped pay for without even knowing it. I didn't pick them up from the airport. They called me 4 times. I didn't answer. They took a rideshare back, laughing, talking about the beaches and the food and how relaxing it all was. I know this because my mother left me a voicemail about it, annoyed that I hadn't been available. And then they got to the house. I imagine my father pulled out his key, still chuckling about some joke. I imagine he slid it into the lock. And I imagine the exact moment his face changed when the key didn't turn. When he tried again. When my mother leaned over his shoulder, confused, irritated. When they realized the locks had been changed. When they walked around to the back and saw through the windows that the house was empty. Completely, utterly empty. They called me 37 times that day. 37. The voicemails started angry. "What the hell is going on, Elena? Open this door right now." Then confused. "Honey, please, we don't understand. Where are you? What happened?" Then desperate. "Elena, please. We're your parents. You can't just leave us with nothing." And finally, entitled. "You're going to regret this. You owe us. That house was supposed to be ours." I didn't respond to a single one. If you've ever been guilt-tripped by family, let me know in the comments. And while you're here, please subscribe so this channel can keep telling stories people are afraid to share. I need you to know you're not alone. None of us are. They found me eventually. Or rather, they found where I worked. They showed up at my office, both of them, demanding to see me. My boss, bless him, took one look at the situation and intervened. He asked them to leave. When they refused, he called security. They were banned from the property. My mother screamed at me through the glass doors as they were escorted out. "You ungrateful, selfish girl. After everything we did for you. Everything they did for me." I almost laughed. Almost. But she wasn't done. She called me from a blocked number. I answered, thinking it was work. "We need to meet," she said, her voice tight and controlled. "Coffee. Tomorrow morning. 9:30. You owe us that much." I thought about saying no. I thought about blocking the number and moving on. But part of me, some small, stubborn part, wanted to face her. Wanted to look her in the eye and let her see what she'd lost. So I agreed. But on my terms. I showed up at 9:50. 20 minutes late. She was already there, sitting at a corner table, her face red and puffy, like she'd been crying. My father sat beside her, arms crossed, jaw tight. I sat down across from them, calm, composed, silent. My mother spoke first. "How could you do this to us? We're your parents, Elena. We raised you. We loved you." Loved me. The word felt like glass in my ears. I didn't say anything. I just pulled out my phone, set it on the table, and pressed play. Her voice filled the small space between us. "She's a burden. Always has been." The color drained from her face. My father went stiff. The recording continued. "The house should have never been hers. Once she signs the transfer, we'll finally have stability." I stopped the playback. The silence was deafening. My mother opened her mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. "Elena, that's not." I didn't mean. I cut her off. My voice was steady. Cold. "You did mean it. And now you need to hear this. I owe you nothing. Not money. Not support. Not access to my life. I paid for everything while you lived in my house. I was kind. I was patient. And you repaid me by plotting to take the one thing I had that was mine. You don't get to guilt me anymore. You don't get to manipulate me anymore. And if you contact me again, if you show up at my work, if you harass me in any way, I will pursue legal action for harassment and file a restraining order. Do you understand?" My mother's face twisted. She started to cry, real tears this time, and my father finally spoke. "You're destroying this family." I stood up. I looked down at both of them, and I said, "No, you destroyed it a long time ago." I just stopped pretending it was whole. And I walked out. If you made it this far, consider subscribing. Or comment why you won't. I see every message. I need to know this matters. I moved again a month later. Not because I had to, because I wanted to. I found a quiet townhouse in a neighborhood where no one knew me. I started therapy. Real therapy. The kind where you talk about emotional exploitation and financial abuse, and all the ways family can break you without ever raising a hand. I learned words for what had happened to me. Parentification. Triangulation. Gaslighting. I learned that I wasn't crazy. I wasn't selfish. I wasn't a burden. One day, while unpacking the last of my things, I found a letter tucked inside one of Aunt Miriam's old books. It was addressed to me, written years before she died. She must have left it there knowing I'd find it someday. It said, "Elena, my darling girl. If you're reading this, I'm gone. And I hope you're living in the house I left you. I hope you're happy. But if you're not, if the weight of family expectation is crushing you, I want you to know this. You are allowed to choose peace. You are allowed to walk away. You are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. I see you. I always have. And I am so proud of you." I cried reading that letter. But they weren't sad tears. They were relief. Gratitude. Because she'd given me more than a house. She'd given me permission to save myself. I started volunteering with a local organization that helps first-time homeowners understand property rights and protect themselves from financial manipulation by family members. I've met so many people with stories like mine. So many people who thought they were alone, who thought they were the problem. And I get to tell them the same thing Aunt Miriam told me. You are not the problem. You never were. It's been over a year now. I haven't spoken to my parents since that day in the cafe. I don't know where they are. I don't know if they're okay. And I've made peace with the fact that I don't need to know. Because my life isn't about them anymore. It's about me. It's about the quiet mornings on my balcony with coffee and a book. It's about the friends I've made who respect my boundaries. It's about the therapy sessions where I'm learning to be kind to the little girl who just wanted to be enough. It's about knowing that I am enough. I always was. Some people will say I was too harsh, that I should have forgiven them, that family is family. But here's what I know now, what I wish I'd known when I was 7 years old sitting at that dinner table trying so hard to be considerate. You are never a burden. Not to the right people. Not to the people who truly love you. And if someone makes you feel like you are, if they treat your existence like an inconvenience, if they plot behind your back to take what's yours, then they are not your people. And you're allowed to walk away. You are allowed to choose yourself. I'm Elena. I'm 33 now. And I am finally free. If you've made it to the end of this story, thank you. Truly. Share your story in the comments if you feel safe doing so. And if you don't feel safe yet, I hope one day you will. Subscribe to this channel. Be part of this community. Because we all deserve to know we're not alone. We all deserve to know that choosing peace isn't selfish. It's survival. And sometimes, survival looks like selling a house, leaving a note, and never looking back. A burden took care of it. And she's never been happier.